You're listening to Productivity Monsters in the Morning. We are the energy vault your real estate business needs to get you up and out and excited and productive for the day. We go over trending topics and things that really matter in the market of the moment. Here are your hosts, Tiffany Hampton and Brooke Silva.
Special edition, we're together.
We are together. I know. I don't know how I feel about being next to one another. Which is a great segue to the topic we're going to talk about.
We are talking about life stories. And so the affirmation is my story matters. My story matters.
And I just have to ask, how many people in your world know your life story?
You know what's interesting is that before coming to KW, no one knew my story. When I taught, because I've been a trainer my whole life for everything we've done, I never once got vulnerable. I never told my story. I never added personal things into my classes. I was so cold and I didn't get good. They were like, yeah, she's a trainer, but she's, and when I came to KW and I started telling my big why and my stories about why these things were so important to me, how I taught changed.
Yeah. The word you used, vulnerability, I related that to weakness. And I can't even say the word. Vulnerability.
It's going to be a rough day here together.
Yes.
No, that's a hard thing, being vulnerable.
There you go.
There you go.
Vulnerability.
Yeah,
There we go. We got it.
we're learning today.
But I saw that as weakness.
I did too, because I also grew up in a world where you didn't talk about your problems outside of your small unit. And so it's your spouse. I didn't even talk to my mom and dad about things that were wrong.
Yep.
Because you were taught people outside the world, they don't need to know your problems. Or if you talk about your problems all the time, you're a complainer. You're a whiner.
Well, life story isn't problems.
Right. But oftentimes people will look at your life story and think you're complaining instead. And those people are not in the right place to hear it, instead of seeing change. Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
There's another big word.
Metamorphosis. And we can say it. When you look at life story, it's what have you overcome?
Right.
Like change the mindset around that.
So coming to KW, that had to be a big shift for you with that. Still is? You still fight it every day?
So I know I've told the story. I don't know if I've ever told the story on this call, but I remember I was intense. Can you believe it? I was intense. Those that know me, I was intense.
Would have never.
And I had an agenda. Yep. And I had a vision of where I desired my world to be.
You had blinders on.
And if you weren't in my immediate get things done, you weren't in my anything.
How did that affect your relationships with people around you? Oh, what relationships?
I still struggle with that.
You're doing better.
I have my people.
You do have your people, and I think it's okay to, I don't go into like depth. This is not a psychology. This is not like psychiatrist's office.
I'll throw up if you go down that road.
Right. And those are nights for out drinking with friends and girl, but there's something about sharing a part of you that shows someone else that you're still a human. Just because I'm up here teaching, just because I'm here coaching you, doesn't mean I haven't lived through the stew. Or if you never share about overcoming adversity or obstacles or all these things, you're a martyr. You're a saint. You're not with your people. That's why I love what I do. Every day I get to be in the trenches with my agents, living with them. Well, I live with one. Right. But you know what I mean? But I live their lives with them at work every day and see what their struggles are. How can we help them? How can we move them forward? What's roadblocks? Is it mindset? Is it learning? Is it physical? Is it health? Is it spiritual? There's all these things that and you can't get to those places with your people if you're not opening up to them about something.
Well, you have to be relatable. Yeah, I think I don't need to be friends with everybody in my world. I do have to be able to relate.
Yes. And be empathetic.
Empathetic. Yeah. There's a few people in my world that can learn that. I was one. I can say that. I am more empathetic.
Yes, and you smile a whole hell of a lot more.
Well, the resting judgment face, working really hard on that.
I don't have a bone in my body that allows me to have a mean look unless my kids are doing something.
Well, thankful for Zoom filter. And I have, the frown thingy here, right? Versus the laugh wrinkles.
That I have.
Yes, because the laugh wrinkles, that came later in life because I laugh and I smile now.
Yeah.
But back in the day, like, and I remember there's an agent out of Portland who we would go to networking events and she'd literally walk around the restaurant just not to be in my path because that's how intense I was. Right.
See it, I would run to you. Hey.
Yeah. And back then I would have been like, space.
I need you to stop right there, ma'am. Back up
10 feet. You're in my bubble. We
So
have bubbles. I had lots of bubbles. My bubbles were probably the size of a building.
your bubbles are probably the size of the earth.
They weren't that big.
They were pretty big.
Yeah.
So what book do you think our friends can read to not get over, but help them share? Because, I've noticed too, like a lot of our rainmakers or team leads, they don't share their life stories with their team. So then they're not relatable to the people on the team.
Well, I think twofold. Number one, we talked about The Mountain Is You.
Yep.
We talked about that book. And had I known the author that wrote that was at Spring Masterminds, had I known she was there, I would have been there.
Such a good book.
Yeah. So I would absolutely read that book and just hone in on some of her podcasts and her YouTube videos. And then the other thing is whether you're part of KW or not, career visioning.
Career visioning is key. And my big thing is journaling. I use a journal that pulls memories forward. Because I think sometimes we have so much going on, we forget about what we've overcome. So journaling has always helped me remember my life before, where I am now, and help relate that to everything we do here at KW or even in my life with my kids.
Yeah. And my true personality fashion, I bullet pointed my history. So I have lots of bullet points and the stories behind them.
It's an Excel sheet, isn't it?
Funny story, not funny story. So one of my goals is like, how do you hold yourself accountable to what you're looking to change in your world? You write it, right?
Right.
Well, just to write it for me, I mean, and honestly, how much do we do for ourselves versus what we do because we want to impact others' lives? So the only way I'm going to write my story is if I, in my head, tell me someday it's going to be published, because if not, it's just not going to get done.
Yep. I make fun of it, but when I have something I want to write, I have a Google sheet that I can get on my phone and everywhere, but it's just like my ideas pad, right? Like, or I text you, but I still put it in my ideas pad. Like if I have a name for a class that I think is going to rock, why we're going to write the class, all these different things. What would be a chapter in my book? I brain dump it into my idea pad and sheet. So I'm making fun of you, but
I know. Well, spreadsheets are your friend.
They are.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I will tell you, had I known then what I know now, the high school class, the college class would have been best practices around spreadsheets.
Oh, see, and I grew up in a world where they taught it in high school starting my freshman year.
Yeah.
So I had Microsoft Access and then Excel and all these database things. So I've been playing in those worlds since I was a young teenager.
I grew up in Jersey. The high school is How Do You Survive Jersey?
You probably had clear backpacks and metal detectors. All right.
All right.
Shenanigans.
We're in Andover. If you need anything, text us.
And have a great day.
Absolutely.
I won't be in your bubble today.
Yeah, please don't. You're in my bubble now, but that's okay.